Alright, so welcome back to another video. Today we will be talking about how you can implement shooting into your game. Alright, so I went ahead and made a new project. So without further ado, let's just get right into the actual tutorial. So we start off with our node 2D. This will be the main scene, so this was probably your main game scene. And then we want to create a player node in here. The player for now will just be a sprite 2D. I'm not going to make it too fancy. You will probably want to make this your own scene, but obviously this is about the shooting and not how you can implement player functionality. So that's already it for the main scene here. So let's just save this as main. And we will make sure to already set it as the main scene here. Then we want to create our bullet scene. The bullet will be a rigid body 2D. We will rename this to bullet. We add a sprite for the image of our bullet, and we add a collision shape, which will obviously match the sprite. Now in our case, I just use a simple rectangle as the bullet, just for this demonstration here, so it's going to be very easy to set up. We add a collision shape so we can determine if it's colliding with anything. Now this is not something I'll be discussing in this tutorial, but I can definitely make it if this is something that you guys want to see. Colliding with enemies or walls and then doing something based on those interactions. So this is pretty much it for the actual nodes here. So let's get started with our bullet script. We click the rigid body 2D, we add a new script, we create. Now in here we only have to do a couple of things because this is not where most of the functionality will go. We set the gravity to 0 because that's not something we want to use. And in here we want to integrate forces. So integrate forces. And then if the linear velocity is not vector 2.0, I'll explain this in a minute. Alright, so what the integrate forces does is it basically check the rotation of the bullet and match its velocity direction. So this will ensure that the bullet's path is always altered and it will always face the direction it will be moving, which we can see if we actually go ahead and implement the rest of our code, and which we can see when we actually fire the gun. Now in here what I'm gonna do is delete the bullet if it has exited our screen. This way we free up some memory, free up some resources, and hopefully improve our performance of the game if it's larger scale. Alright, so this is it for the bullet script. What we can do is come over to our player here, and we want to implement a script on here. Now this will be the bigger script of the two. So let's go ahead and create our new script here. I'll just call this main for now, but you probably want to implement the shooting functionality on your player or even on your shooting system or whatever. For this tutorial, I'll just put it on the node 2D, but you probably want to have this in the player scene. Alright, so in our main script here, we want to add a reference to our bullet. We want to have a bullet speed. There we go. So then in our unhandled input, we want to actually go ahead and start implementing our inputs. So obviously we'll want to check if the left mouse is clicked or not, which we will do right here. So what we will do is we check if the input is from the mouse, so like this. And we want to check if it's actually the left mouse button, which we'll be using to shoot. So we can do this by typing out this here. So this will basically check if the button that was pressed is the left mouse button and if it was actually pressed. So then we just shoot past the global mouse position to our function, and then now we write our shoot function. So in here we want to instantiate our bullet. So we do this by going ahead and referencing the bullet, and we just instantiate. Then we want to set its position to the player. So we always make sure that the bullet get spawned where the player is. So that way it won't get teleported somewhere randomly, it shoots from the player. And then we want to get the direction the bullet should be facing, for which we will use the target position we passed into the function, same as the bullet position, and then normalize it. And then we want to set the velocity of the bullet. So let's see here. I think it's this. And by the direction times the speed of the bullet. And then we want to get the angle of the bullet here. And we want to set the rotation to that angle. And we get the bullet to our scene here. So bullet. Alright, so I went over this fairly quickly, so I'll just explain it a little bit. What we do in the unhandled input is we check if the mouse button was clicked, if it's the left mouse button, and if it was pressed, we simply shoot and we pass the mouse position so we know where the bullet's going to fire to. Then in our shoot function, we simply instantiate the bullet, so we have a bullet to use, and then we set the position of that bullet to the player's position. Then what we do is we calculate a direction the bullet should go, which is basically the mouse minus the bullet position, so basically the distance between that. And then the linear velocity, we'll just set the velocity, multiplying the direction by its bullet speed, so we know how fast the bullet can go. And then we want to calculate the angle and set the bullet rotation to match that angle. And then what we do lastly here is we add the child of bullet to the current node, so it appears in the scene. So if we start this up, we should have our player here. I forgot to add the sprite. There we go. And then let's also adjust the position a little bit so he is more centered in the screen. So now when we click mouse 1, we can see the bullet fires towards this direction, and it also matches the angle of the sprite. So that was pretty much it for this quick tutorial. I just showed you how you can implement firing or shooting mechanics into your game and how you can fire where the pistol shoots or the gun shoots. So this way you can implement your shooting mechanic into the game and even added collision when the player gets hurt or an enemy gets hurt, you can deduct HP. Now if you want to see some tutorial about this, I can definitely make a tutorial for this, and just let me know if you want to see that in the comments. So thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed and I hope you learned something today. If there's something wrong or you want help with anything, just let me know in the comments and I will help you out further. Also comment any suggestions you have or tips to improve my videos, and I will see you in the next tutorial. Bye bye.